a very warm welcome to Dreamy Detections. Thank you for choosing to rest here with us in this peaceful sanctuary tonight. This story has been created with the simple hope of helping you find gentle contentment and drift softly into a restorative sleep. If our time together brings you comfort, a simple like, a subscription to our little corner of calm, or a kind comment is always so deeply appreciated. Tonight, we will be visiting the charming village of Maylily Dale, a place nestled in quiet and steeped in simple wonder. Prepare to find a respite from the world, where the air is scented with flowers, and the only puzzle is one of delightful curiosity. Let the stillness of the village settle around you, offering a gentle space for your mind to rest and your heart to be at ease. Chapter 1. The Scent of Larkspur and Calm. The journey to Maylily Dale had been a long and quiet one, a gentle unwinding on sleepy country roads that seemed to lead further from the world of haste and closer to a place of profound stillness. For Edmund Finch, each passing mile had felt like shedding a layer of weight he had not realized he was carrying. He was a retired botanist, a man who had always found more comfort in the patient unfolding of a leaf than in the hurried conversations of people. Now, stepping out of the carriage onto the single lane of the village, he breathed in an air so clean and sweet it felt like a welcome all on its own. It carried the scent of damp earth, the distant perfume of larkspur, and the faintest, most comforting hint of wood smoke from a cottage chimney. His new home was a small cottage, just as the advertisement had promised, built of the same warm, honey-colored stone as its neighbors. It had a deep green door and window boxes already brimming with cheerful pansies. Inside, the air was cool and smelled faintly of beeswax and dried herbs. Edmund ran a hand along the smooth, worn wood of the central table, a silent greeting to the generations of quiet lives that had unfolded within these walls. He felt an immediate sense of rightness, a feeling of coming home to a place he had never been before. The silence was not empty. It was full of peace, a gentle presence that wrapped around him like the softest of blankets. After unpacking his few boxes, which contained more books on plants than articles of clothing, Edmund felt a pull to explore. The sun was beginning its slow descent, painting the western sky in hues of soft rose and pale lavender. He stepped outside and walked towards the heart of the village, the central square. It was a lovely patch of green bordered by a low wall and surrounded by cottages that looked as though they had grown from the earth itself. In the center was a large circular bed of flowers, their forms becoming simple silhouettes in the deepening twilight. He could just make out the neat, orderly rows of what he recognized as petunias. As dusk settled fully, the village began to glow. One by one, soft lights appeared in the windows of the cottages, each one a warm, golden rectangle promising comfort and peace within. The old-fashioned lampposts around the square flickered to life, not with a harsh electric glare, but with a soft, steady luminescence that cast long, gentle shadows. Edmund found a comfortable wooden bench and sat, simply observing. He noticed then a new sound, a very faint, melodic hum that seemed to emanate from the lampposts themselves, a soothing thrum that resonated in the quiet air. It was the most peaceful sound he had ever heard. He sat there for a long time, watching as the first stars began to prick the deep blue canopy above. The world he had left behind with its demands and its noise felt a universe away. Here, time moved differently. It did not rush forward, it ambled, it meandered. It flowed as gently as the stream he could hear murmuring somewhere nearby. He could feel the tension in his shoulders, a companion for so many years, finally begin to release its hold. His breathing became slower, deeper, syncing with the calm rhythm of the village. The air grew cooler, and a gentle breeze rustled the leaves of the ancient oak tree that stood guard at the edge of the square. Edmund pulled his coat a little tighter, a gesture of comfort, not of cold. He looked at the neatly planted petunias, their colors now surrendered to the gentle monochrome of the evening. They were simple, unassuming, planted with a care that spoke of a love for order and beauty. He saw the warm glow from the window of what he guessed was the bakery, a beacon of communal warmth. In that moment, Edmund Finch felt a profound and unwavering sense of safety. He was a quiet man who had found a quiet place, a harbor from the storms of a world that was too loud and too fast. He had not come here to find adventure or excitement. He had come here to find this exact feeling, the deep, abiding peace of a gentle world, the quiet contentment of a soul finally at rest. The humming of the lampposts was a lullaby, and the soft lights of the cottages were promises of a peaceful tomorrow. He rose from the bench, his body feeling pleasantly heavy and relaxed. He walked back to his own little cottage, his footsteps the only sound on the lane. He opened the green door and stepped into the peaceful darkness of his new home, feeling not like a stranger, but like someone who had always belonged. He knew with a certainty that warmed him to his core that he would sleep very, very well tonight, cradled in the quiet heart of Maylily Dale. Chapter 2. A Spiral of Fuchsia and Pink. Edmund awoke to the gentle sound of birdsong outside his window. The morning light that filtered through the small panes of glass was soft and luminous, promising a day of quiet beauty. For the first time in many years he had slept without interruption, a deep and restorative slumber that left him feeling clear-headed and wonderfully refreshed. He made a simple breakfast of toast and tea, savoring each bite and sip in the peaceful solitude of his kitchen. The simple routine felt like a meditation, a gentle start to a gentle day. He felt a pleasant anticipation for his morning walk, a desire to see the village again in the full light of day. He walked back to the village square, his heart light. The air was cool and crisp, carrying the sweet, earthy scent of damp soil and blooming flowers. As he approached the central garden bed, he stopped, a slow smile spreading across his face. The petunias were not as he had left them. The neat, orderly rows from the previous evening were gone. In their place, the flowers were now arranged in a perfect, gentle spiral, with rings of deep fuchsia alternating with pale, delicate pink. It was a masterpiece of horticultural art, whimsical and utterly charming. He walked around the entire flower bed, admiring the precision and the artistry. What a wonderfully creative gardener this village must have, he murmured to himself. He imagined a kindly soul with a keen eye for beauty. spending the early hours of the morning rearranging the blooms to bring a smile to the faces of the villagers. The thought filled him with a quiet warmth. It was a testament to the character of this place, where someone would take such care to create a small, fleeting moment of delight for others. Edmund decided to spend the rest of the morning in his own small garden behind the cottage. It was a humble patch of earth, but it was his. He found the old gardening tools left by the previous owner in a small shed, their wooden handles worn smooth with use. He spent hours on his knees, not working, but simply tending. He gently loosened the soil, pulled the few errant weeds with a thoughtful touch, and planned where he would plant the seeds he had brought with him. The sun warmed his back, and the feeling of the rich, dark earth on his hands was deeply grounding. By midday, he was contentedly tired. He retreated inside to his favorite armchair, the one he had placed by the window that looked out onto his garden. He had brought with him a cherished book, an old volume on the local flora of the region, its pages soft and yellowed with age. The rustle of the turning pages was a soft, comforting sound in the quiet room. He read not with any academic purpose, but for the simple pleasure of the words and the beautiful, detailed illustrations of wildflowers and ferns. As he read, he would occasionally look up and gaze out the window, watching a bumblebee drift lazily from one blossom to another. He noticed the way the light changed as a single, fluffy white cloud passed overhead, softening the colors of the garden for a moment before they brightened again. These small, simple observations brought him an immense sense of peace. There were no deadlines to meet, no expectations to fulfill. There was only the present moment, rich with simple sensory delights. Later in the afternoon, with the book resting in his lap, he felt his eyelids grow heavy. The gentle fatigue was not a burden, but a pleasant weight that invited rest. He allowed his eyes to close, his head resting against the soft, worn fabric of the armchair. He drifted into a light, peaceful doze. The hum of the bees in the garden and the distant chime of the church bell weaving themselves into a soothing soundscape. The world outside his window continued its gentle, unhurried dance, and for a little while Edmund was a quiet part of it. He awoke feeling even more settled, more at home. The spiral of petunias, the warmth of the sun, the feel of the old book in his hands, these were the simple, profound joys he had been seeking. He did not feel the need to understand everything about this place all at once. It was enough to simply be here, to observe, and to appreciate. The gentle puzzle of the artistic gardener could wait. For now, he was content to simply enjoy the beautiful result, a quiet gift at the heart of his new, peaceful life. Chapter 3. A Murmur of the Chequered Blooms. The next morning dawned with the same gentle grace as the one before. Edmund's routine was already taking on a comforting shape. The quiet cup of tea, the songs of the wrens and finches, and the peaceful walk to the village square. He approached the central flower bed with a sense of pleasant anticipation, curious to see what new design the village gardener had created. He was not disappointed. The lovely spiral from yesterday had vanished, and in its place was a perfect checkerboard of deep purple and brilliant white petunias. The pattern was so precise, so immaculate, It looked like a living quilt spread out upon the earth. Edmund let out a soft chuckle of delight. The gardener was not just creative, they were truly dedicated. To create such a pattern would take hours of patient, careful work. He felt a growing admiration for this anonymous artist who brought such gentle beauty to the village each day. He decided that today he would try to find out who it was, not to intrude, but simply to offer a word of appreciation for their lovely work. His first stop, he decided, would be the bakery, which was already sending a warm, yeasty aroma out into the cool morning air. The bell above the door of the Rolling Pin Bakery gave a cheerful little jingle as he entered. Inside, the warmth was immediate and enveloping. A kind-faced woman with flour dusting her apron and her grey hair tied up in a neat bun smiled at him from behind the counter. "Good morning," she said, her voice as warm as the air around them. "A lovely day, is it not? I'm Beatrice Gable, but please call me Mrs. Gable." Edmund introduced himself and felt immediately at ease in her amiable presence. "I'll have one of those currant buns, please," Edmund said. "They smell wonderful." As Mrs. Gable wrapped the warm bun in wax paper, he decided to ask his question. "I was just admiring the petunias in the square," he began. "The patterns are just magnificent. The checkerboard today is a work of art. I was wondering, who is the talented gardener responsible for such a display?" He expected her to name someone, perhaps an old fellow with a passion for design, or a young woman with a creative flair. Mrs. Gable paused, a gentle, knowing smile playing on her lips. She looked at Edmund with kind eyes as if sharing a delightful secret. "Ah, the Petunias," she said softly, her voice holding a hint of fond amusement. "They are rather special, aren't they? They have their own way of doing things." She handed him his bun, her smile widening slightly. "We all enjoy seeing what they've come up with each morning. It's one of Maylily Dale's oldest and gentlest charms." Edmund was momentarily taken aback. Her words were not a direct answer, but they held a meaning that was slowly dawning on him. The patterns were not the work of a person. He looked at her, his expression a mixture of confusion and wonder. "You mean they do it themselves?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. Mrs. Gable simply gave a slight, reassuring nod, her eyes twinkling. "They dance to the village's heartbeat, or so my grandmother used to say." He left the bakery with his warm bun and this new, wondrous piece of information. He walked back to the square and sat on his favorite bench, looking at the checkered blooms with new eyes. It was not artistry, but a gentle, natural magic, a quiet quirk of nature that this village had accepted and cherished for generations. He felt a new sensation wash over him, a feeling of being let into the very heart of the community. This was not a secret kept from him, but a wonder that was now shared with him. The knowledge did not create a need for answers or scientific explanation. In his old life, he would have felt compelled to study it, to understand the mechanism behind it. But here in Maylily Dale, that compulsion was absent. The feeling that replaced it was one of pure, simple awe. The village was not just peaceful, it was imbued with a quiet and harmless wonder. The humming lamp-posts, the dancing flowers, they were all part of the fabric of this tranquil place. He took a bite of his currant bun. It was warm and sweet and perfect, He looked around at the glowing cottages, the ancient oak tree, and the impossible flowers. He was not just an observer anymore. By sharing in this gentle wonder, he was a part of it. A deep, quiet joy bloomed in his chest, as lovely and as welcome as the petunias in the square. He understood that the real charm of Maylily Dale was not just in its peace, but in its wholehearted acceptance of its own gentle magic. Chapter 4. A Gardener's Quiet Accord. Several days passed, each one bringing a new and delightful pattern to the petunias in the square. There was a morning of gentle, concentric circles, another of soft, flowing waves, and one particularly lovely day when the flowers formed the shape of a large, friendly sun. Edmund's morning walk became a cherished ritual of peaceful discovery. He no longer questioned the phenomenon. He simply accepted it with a quiet gratitude, just as all the other villagers did. The shared, unspoken wonder was a comfortable and binding thread within the community. One morning, as he was admiring a new pattern of interlocking diamonds, he saw an elderly man tending to the edges of the flower bed. The man moved with a slow, deliberate grace, his hands wrinkled and knowing, gently coaxing a stray vine back into place. He had a kind, weathered face and a peaceful expression. Edmund felt a gentle pull to approach him. "Good morning," Edmund said softly, not wanting to disturb the man's work. "The flowers are especially beautiful today." The man looked up and gave Edmund a warm, slow smile. "Good morning to you, too. They do seem to be in a fine mood, don't they?" he said, his voice a low, pleasant rumble. "I'm Thomas Hemlock. I look after the gardens here." Edmund introduced himself, and Mr. Hemlock gestured to the bench. "Have a seat if you've a moment. My old knees appreciate a rest now and then." Edmund sat, and a comfortable silence settled between them for a moment as they both gazed at the diamond-patterned blooms. "I must admit," Edmund began, "when I first arrived I thought you were the artist behind these beautiful displays." Mr. Hemlock chuckled, a soft, breathy sound. "Oh, goodness, no. I wish I had half the imagination these flowers do. My work is much simpler." He leaned back on the bench, his gaze full of affection for the plants before them. "My father was the gardener here before me, and his mother before him. We Hemlocks don't arrange the flowers. We just make sure they're happy." He explained that his job was simply to provide the best soil, to ensure they had just enough water, and to protect them from any weeds that might trouble them. "It's a quiet accord, you see," Mr. Hemlock continued, his voice full of a simple, profound wisdom. "We give them what they need to thrive, and in return, they give the village these little gifts each morning. They have a gentle life all their own, and it is my great pleasure to simply be their caretaker." In that moment, the last piece of the gentle puzzle clicked into place for Edmund. The magic of the petunias was not an anomaly to be solved. It was a partnership. It was born of generations of quiet care and gentle respect. The village did not seek to control or understand the wonder at its heart. It sought only to nurture it. This quiet accord between the people and the flowers was the perfect metaphor for the village itself. It was a place built on harmony, acceptance, and a deep appreciation for simple living things. A profound and lasting peace settled over Edmund, deeper than any he had felt before. It was the peace of complete understanding, not of a mechanism, but of a feeling. He saw the kindness in Mr. Hemlock's eyes. He remembered the warm, knowing smile of Mrs. Gable, and he looked at the vibrant, dancing flowers. Everything in Maylily Dale was connected in a gentle, unspoken web of kindness and care. He finally understood that he hadn't just moved to a village. He had been welcomed into a garden. "That is the most wonderful explanation I could have imagined," Edmund said, his voice filled with sincere gratitude. Mr. Hemlock simply nodded, a look of contentment on his face. They sat together for a while longer, two quiet men on a bench, appreciating the beauty before them. The distant chime of the church bell marked the hour, a soft melodic note on the peaceful air. Edmund felt his heart fill with a quiet, unshakable joy. He had come to Maylily Dale seeking tranquility, a simple escape from a noisy world. He had found that, but he had also found something more. He had found a place where wonder was cultivated, where magic was a quiet companion, and where peace was not just an absence of noise, but a living, breathing presence. He was no longer just a resident. He was a part of the quiet accord, another soul tending to the garden of peace. And he knew, with every fiber of his being, that he was finally, truly home.